Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation brought to you by Bet365. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. My name is Dave Quadrelli. I am joined by Harmon Dial. It's a family feud Thursday, folks, and that's all people can talk about in the chat right now. People calling me a fraud already. I don't know, Harm. Maybe you're biased, but I don't think I'm the whole reason we've lost. Like, they've been hard surveys. Last week, tough to argue that me not getting the 40 points we needed was part of the reason we lost, at least part of it. But I don't know. I don't think I played that poorly.
Last week was tough. I'm not gonna lie. You fumbled that. Before this past week, I'd say I haven't had an issue. You haven't had too many leads that you've choked.
Today
we're
turning
to
around
yourself this week.
Yep,
you can't go back to back.
Of course, and I won't. I don't plan on losing. Speaking of our chat, our super chat charity partner is the BC Mental Health Foundation. If you want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show, hit us with a super chat. Proceeds from our super chat go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by spreading breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. I like this. Saltaire Brew. We need the win, Quads and Harm. The Canucks won't give us one. Get the family feud win for us. I'm going to do my best. All right. Harmon, let's start with tonight's game. Canucks are in Columbus. Patrick Johnston is going to join us later in the show. We'll chat with him about, obviously, his conversation with Jim Rutherford. I'll probably ask him some questions about Gino. I just finished the book, so I'll ask him some questions. But Canucks in Columbus. Not too many lineup notes to get into. I think the big one is that Nils Höglander looks to be a healthy scratch. Let's start there, Harm. Were you surprised today when you saw Dan Murphy tweet out the lines and Höglander was not a part of line rushes?
Yeah, and it's not because Höglander's played so well that you need to have him in the lineup, but it's who is coming in for Höglander's place, and that's Archie Bains. To me, I haven't seen enough from Bains this season to justify scratching a player in Höglander, where you're probably trying to manage his asset value as well and figure out exactly what his future with the organization is. Not to mention for Höglander, the slow start, hasn't been able to get on the score sheet, but I give him a bit of a grace in this early period because of the injury that he's coming off of, not having a proper preseason, trying to find your game in the middle of the campaign when you're behind the eight ball is challenging. And I think the Canucks should be putting Höglander in a position where he can hopefully get his game back on track. And then when you notice his speed and energy and play driving his return, then if anything, I want to see him maybe at some point get an opportunity with Elias Pettersson, maybe rack up some points. And even if he isn't a long-term part of this organization, at least audition him, showcase him for other teams. I don't like the idea of just subbing him out because you want to put Archie Bains lineup. This would be a different conversation if everybody was healthy and you got really tough lineup decisions, right? Before Rossi and Garland went down earlier in the month when they had their forward crunch, then okay, I understood why Höglander was sitting out. Right now, I don't fully agree with it.
Okay. Looking at the rest of the lineup, Brock Besser, he gets some new line mates tonight. Max Sassone, Drew O'Connor. A little bit of speed for Brock Besser's line.
A lot of speed. Taking a different approach, right?
Actually, the most speed. Literally the most speed you could get on this team.
Yeah, and it's the opposite approach where before he was playing on a line with David Kampf, and so his center was as slow as you can get, which maybe is a closer match to Brock's foot speed, and you'd think, all right, at least from a foot speed perspective, they would align a little bit better. But the issue with that is David Kampf, he's fine defensively, but he can't drive any offense whatsoever. There is no playmaking ability in his game. And now you're going in the complete opposite direction. You would hope that O'Connor's ability to get in on the forecheck can cause the disruption for that line to where they can spend some time in the offensive zone. But to me, when I look at O'Connor and Sassone, I think about them as a counter-attacking line where if you force a turnover, that duo can create against the grain chances. punishing the opposition's turnovers, and that's not really Brock's game. So I'm curious to see how they'll mesh stylistically. But let's be honest, it's not as if there are many other great fits for Besser on this roster. He hasn't shown an ability to rekindle his early career chemistry with Elias Pettersson, and I don't see many other players on this roster that I think he would mesh well with. I mean, early on when Garland and Besser were first together, I thought that could be a promising duo, but that kind of fizzled out after the first couple of games where they had some success, but then went a little bit quiet.
We'll see how that goes for them tonight. I wanted to point this out too, because remember Arbor Xhekaj's pizza in the Montreal game where he just threw it right into the middle of the ice? That doesn't happen if your guys aren't in on the forecheck. Like, I know we always make fun of defensemen for doing that. Lucas Pisa, how you doing? But if it's Besser on the receiving end of that, like, that's how you get goals if you're Brock Besser, right? Like, you want to be on the receiving end of that. You want to be able to get that puck and rip it in a hurry. We'll see. We'll see if Sassone and
you've got to be quick enough to, all right, if O'Connor or Sassone force a turnover, you got to be quick enough to join the rush. And that's where I think back to when Besser was on the line with Philip Hedl, and the speed mismatch was just, it was off. Now, different style of play, right? Where Hedl, he drives a lot of controlled entries. There's nobody else really like that on the Canucks roster except maybe Elias Pettersson, but even Pettersson does that at a much slower foot speed than Hedl does. Whereas when you look at Sassone and O'Connor, they have Hedl-like foot speed, but they aren't generating zone entries with possession at nearly the same clip that Hedl will. But the point being, Hedl and Besser last year after the JT Miller trade, when they were put together, it didn't quite work because you'd have Hedl going a million miles an hour through the neutral zone, going on these solo dashes, and Brock Besser would be behind. Yep. And it wasn't just on Brock. I think also part of it was Hedl had a tendency to just attack north and not really, it didn't really have much east-west to his game. And part of it was Hedl needed to adapt to his winger as well. But yeah, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but I guess you got to try something new because last 20, 30 games have been a rough ride for Besser.
Hey, Liam Ogren playing with Connor Garland. I like that. David Kamp's the center, so that means they'll get a ton of ice time. But Liam Ogren getting a shot with Connor Garland on what skated as the third line. I really like that. I really like that idea.
Yeah, I've liked Ogren's game for a while, and especially the other night against Ottawa. He was one of the only forwards on this team that I thought had noticeable jump, that was giving the Sens some fits, and especially it was the second leg of a back-to-back. So to still have your fresh legs and be making things happen, he generated a couple of those partial breakaways that was noticeable. And another guy I wanted to spotlight as having a pretty decent performance against the Senators last game. You'll have to wait for me to tell you about him in the stat of the day, which is a presentation of Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app. From game day eats to paper plates, napkins, if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip before, during, and after the game. Uber Eats is assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. Hashtag crave the stats. Okay, not my smoothest transition there.
It was good. It was good. But you had really smooth ones.
I want to talk about Zeev Buium. He, of course, returned to the lineup against the Senators after being healthy scratched against Montreal. And I thought the reset worked for him. He was back on a pair with Tyler Myers, who was his original D partner when he first got to Vancouver. We, in more recent times, saw Buium playing more with Philip Hronek, but Buium was noticeable to me stepping up into the neutral zone, killing plays. And this is where, if you're a young defenseman that skates really well, of course, that's going to be an asset on breakouts, but where that can really differentiate you at the big league level is if you can learn how to leverage that foot speed to close really quickly on opposing puck carriers, to combine that with smart anticipation to where you're able to squash plays really early. And I noticed Buium able to do that 2 or 3 times in the first half of that game against the Senators, where it's the foot speed, to close in on that, but also how quickly he was reading where the opposition's breakout pass is going to be, and then stepping up, using his stick to dislodge it, and then ensure that the Canucks got possession back. There was another even offensive zone pinch where I thought it's a great read to recognize, hey, this is an aggressive opportunity to step up. I think most defensemen in that spot wouldn't have been quick enough to close that play. But Bouillon, because he has that speed, was able to disrupt the Senators, and I think he dropped a stick, so he wasn't able to follow up on it and cause a bunch more chaos. But just another aggressive pinch up the ice there. Adam Foote also talked about that after the game, how he liked how aggressive Bouillon was. He was just on his toes rather than on his heels, and I think that's going to be really important. And when you look at the numbers from that game, a contest in which the Canucks were brutally outmatched and outplayed for most of the night, Canucks actually generated 22 shot attempts with Bouillon on the ice at 5-on-5, a near 60% share of the shot attempts. So it was really nice to see on a night where the Canucks were outclassed by the Senators, how Bouillon's mobility, his puck play, his reads to close on guys defensively were tilting the ice in Vancouver's favor.
What was the stat in there? Did you have a stat, or were you just?
Yeah, I mean, did you not listen?
No, what was the actual stat? The number.
The 22 shot attempts that they generated with Bouillon on the ice at 5-on-5.
Oh, okay, nice. All right,
you don't really listen, do you?
No, I do, but I'm also reading the chat. I just wanted to make sure I highlighted what the actual number was. Okay, I had this for you quickly, and I know PJ's waiting. We'll get to PJ in a second here. But Bouillon, he's skating with Filip Hronek, right? At morning skate? Yeah, no, Myers, not Hronek. So we had this conversation recently, Harm, about Bouillon with Hronek in a small sample size that we really liked that pairing. He's with Myers tonight. What do you think?
Well, he was also with Myers in Ottawa, and I thought they played well together. So why not continue that? And I also wonder if part of it is putting Marcus Pettersson in a position to succeed by pairing him with Filip Hronek. When I think about Marcus Pettersson's time in Pittsburgh, he was at his best with a more offensively oriented partner, somebody that could really drive the bus and be the main driver on that D pair. He was at his best with Erik Karlsson. He also spent a lot of time with Chris Letang. Marcus Pettersson in Pittsburgh wasn't asked to be the main driver, be the engine of his own D pair, which is sort of the task if you're in a matchup role alongside Tyler Myers. Now, with Filip Hronek, you know that he's going to be able to break pucks out. You know that he's going to try and make plays in the offensive zone. You know that you're in more of a supporting complementary role if you're the left shot defenseman next to Filip Hronek. So I wonder if part of it is also trying to unlock a better version of Marcus Pettersson. And so if you're trying to put Pettersson in that spot, well, then that means Bouillon is going to be with Tyler Myers. The more interesting part to me is Tom Verlander back in the lineup, P.O. Joseph out. That means two righties on the third pair with Verlander and Mancini. Verlander listed on the left side. I'm curious to see how he adapts to that, because there are, of course, differences when you're a right shot defenseman playing on the left side in terms of just where you're receiving pucks. There are just extra details that you have to be mindful of. Obviously, in the offensive zone, it means that you have the one-timer available to you, but the trade-off is that it's harder to skate and attack down the wall because the puck is a little bit more exposed towards the middle of the ice. Different angles on the breakouts when you're trying to make outlet passes and just when you're receiving DDD passes. I'm curious to see how Verlander adjusts, because it's a tough ask of a rookie defenseman.
I was going to do a joke and start talking about Marcus Pettersson as if it was my own thought, because the chat's really, really having a field day with me missing the stat of the day.
Well, it was one thing if I brought the stat up right at the beginning and then went on a 5-minute rant. I went on the 2 or 3 minute rant, and then it was one of the very last things I brought up. I brought the stat up at the end.
Yeah. Well, that's what threw me off, because usually you start. Anyways, there's no talking my way out of this one as much as I'd like to. Let's bring in our guest today. It's Patrick Johnston. He's brought to you by our friends over at Greta, a great spot for all games. Speaking of games, there's a big game happening on Sunday, February 8th. It is the Super Bowl. Who do you think is going to be in the Super Bowl? We'll have that conversation with anyone else, potentially. Come on down to Greta. They're going to have giveaways, prizes, and more for the big game. So make Greta your spot to watch the Super Bowl, Sunday, February 8th. They're taking reservations right now. Space is limited. Get your reservation while you can. They're going to have really good stuff all day long. It's going to be super, super fun. Oh, Super Bowl, super fun. Yeah. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. Patrick Johnston joins us now.
Just shaking.
What do you have to say, Patrick?
Oh, I'm just shaking my head. You know, you're so distracted. Can't keep track of what you're doing. Trying to, Super Bowl, super fun. Dave, I'm trying to imagine you. I'm pretty sure Harm's not a football guy. I'm trying to imagine you. Like, neither of you have anything to say about the Super Bowl. Do you?
Yeah,
I certainly don't.
I know ball. I know ball. I know ball. I'm in a fantasy football league with you.
Yeah, I know, but your brother's running the team.
I'm the owner. I'm owner quads in that league. Anyway, thanks for joining us, Patrick. Gino, I want to start there. I just finished the book. I really liked it. I don't know if I asked you this last time. I know I asked you some questions about the book, but now that I've read it, I'm not going to spoil. Nice, there you go. I'm not going to spoil anything from the book, but was there anything you learned about Gino the person? Because obviously, me reading the book, I learned a ton. But you as the author, I know you worked with Peter, you worked with Dina closely on this, Gino's sister. Was there anything you learned about Gino the person that you didn't know prior to writing the book? Anything that surprised you even?
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, the thing I kind of try to highlight at the beginning, which is that like people underestimated Gino in so many ways. And it's not just the easy story of like, here's a guy who fought his way in the NHL and was actually more talented than, anyone imagined that he could be talented enough to make the NHL. It's more in real life, like, the original, the opening story, as I relate, which one is Saddam? Like, literally, like, let's be clear, 35 years ago, like tomorrow, basically the coalition bombing campaign starts in Iraq. Like, it's the news. I can tell you guys, I'm in grade 4, and we had Desert Storm cards. Like, there wasn't just going up to the store to buy hockey cards. Like, we knew what was going on. We knew everybody involved. It was all over the news. And so the idea that Gino would be like, after seeing a sign that stands that said Gino's tougher than Saddam, the idea that Gino would sort of elbow Stan Smeel and go, oh, which one's Saddam, but be serious about it, as opposed to making a big, huge joke. Like, everyone took it to be, well, Gino doesn't know. He's just some country bumpkin. But, as Stan said, Gino knew. And Gino, like, read the paper cover to cover every day. His buddy Andy to watch, who I talked to a bunch for the book, you couldn't get Gino away from his newspaper until he was done. Like, Donald Odette said the big reason he came over to his house in Junior wasn't just have breakfast, because they had the paper. Like, Gino could find out what's going on. Gino wanted to know. At one point, Gino said he was reading 100 books a year, right? Like it was just understanding what a remarkable person he was, beyond just being a very fun hockey player and a fun-loving guy that people appreciated. That was the part that I knew. But to learn about everything else and what drove him, and obviously some lingering questions that why couldn't he be alone, things like that. I mean, that was the other thing that came along on the journey. But it was just realizing what a fascinating person he was, and obviously Peter helped take me on that journey. And you're sad he's gone. I mean, that was the other thing in this, is that you become, talk to all his friends and many of his teammates and partners and kids and all this. And you just find out how loved he was and what an impact he made on people. And I only interviewed him a few times, and he, I lived near where I grew up, near where he lived a lot of the time. I lived in Dunbar, I grew up in Dunbar, not far from Musqueam. And, he was a guy that I would see around. There was a lot of sort of commonalities in our lives in terms of things we went to and things we saw. Obviously his experience was a lot more interesting than mine. And I wish I'd gotten to know him a bit better in life. That is the thing that is, I think, my other big takeaway just from putting it all together.
PJ, you had another great interview with Jim Rutherford yesterday. It was the talk of the town. What were your main takeaways from that interview with Jim?
Well, I think it's probably what a lot of people have keyed on, which is that sort of that 2 to 3 year timeline he's talking about, but also the idea of needing patience. Right? Like, not he says shortcut. I really think it's short circuit. Like, just trying to say, okay, well, we can bring these guys in and that'll make a difference, right? And all due respect to Jay Beagle, love talking to Jay Beagle, but making moves like that, signing these sort of centermen you don't really need, who don't really add anything for the idea, oh, well, they're veterans, right? Well, I mean, that's Jim's point. He's already got some veterans here. They obviously are going to hang on to some of them. They're not getting rid of everybody. And so that part really stood out to me, and that sort of note that we got to be patient here. And whether that was directed at the owner or not, it was definitely a case of, you know, him recognizing how this gets done. And I think speaking to what we've seen elsewhere, it causes problems. Like, you know, you look at Buffalo. I actually cited directly the idea, you know, they had Eichel, right? And then they go and sign Kyle Oposo, and they weren't ready, you know, and they lost their way and ended up taking however many years it's taken. And whether, you know, the Sabres still have to make the playoffs, right? Like, we're talking about the Sabres as if they're done. They're not done, but they're finally pointed in the right direction. And, you know, you look at a team like that, you look at the Sharks, same kind of deal. I mean, the Sharks have been a lot more patient, a lot more meticulous. But you know, you tell me how long do we actually take? How long does it take the Sharks sort of tip to tail, right, for where they began, or how long has that taken, right? Like, it's not a straight line. That's the other one, right? And so he didn't mention that. If I can jump ahead, that's the thing he didn't mention, was there's sort of an assumption that, well, if we do this and we do this and we do that, then we'll be there. And that's not a thing you should assume is going to happen. I mean, as we've seen, they're now bailing on this group that didn't work. And you know, if we'd gone back to, you know, you look at the stuff when you first came on the scene and you were first like talking about stuff, and we were first thinking about what this team was like, there were a lot of interesting things going on with this team, but they had to follow through. And in the end, they didn't follow through, right? Like, this team did not make it. So now you're starting again. And I think it's just remembering that even when you're patient, it may not work out.
We've heard a lot about this 2-3 year timeline, and like even before your interview, that's sort of what I'd been hearing really ever since the Quinn Hughes trade. That's kind of been what they've been targeting. The question I kind of have is, when they say 2 or 3 years, do you think they mean 2 or 3 years for us to be an up and coming team where we're flirting with the playoffs the way the San Jose Sharks are right now? Because, all right, that might be realistic. Or are they referring to 2 or 3 years and we expect to be a perennial playoff team, like more the Montreal Canadiens, where we're a perennial playoff team and we're on the cusp of actually contending for a Stanley Cup?
I think that's a great question. And, you know, it's one of these ones, like, we realized after the fact the follow-up questions we left on the floor, right? And that is one that will have to be a follow-up with Jim, whether it's when we talk to him in general or if I talk to him again. That's certainly something to be asked, because what does that actually destination mean? You know, I always tell people when they're learning how to ask questions, when you hear it, follow up and clarify what it is. And when they say a thing, make sure they define it. And if they don't, get them to define it. And I did a bit with that, but I just didn't think about it. You're right. Like, I sat there and thought back. I mean, my feeling is that what he means is that there's going to be a couple years of pain, and then they're going to be back, sort of, whether it's flirting with the playoffs or consistently in the playoffs. Either way, there will be playoff games, you know, and at a certain level, you can imagine that, you know, say they get, you know, Stenberg or McKenna, you know, one of these guys this year, and then next year they get another young player. And all of a sudden, okay, you got a couple of guys, and they've got a couple extra late first round picks this year and next year, maybe, you know, like they've got 3 or 4 guys that can kind of say, okay, that's the sort of new core. We're going to bring them along. We still have whoever, because, you know, he also admits that they're ready to trade kind of anybody depending on the offer. You know, that puts you, okay, when those guys are 20, right? Like, you think about, so look at the Celebrini curve, right? How long does that actually take? It's the end of the second year. So 2 to 3 years to me means, you know, you've got the draft this year. So we're talking like 2028, 29, right? That's 3 seasons theoretically from now, right? 26, 27, 27, 28, 28, 29. So that's, to me, that's your 2 to 3 years right there. So is it reasonable? Sure. But as you said, that's not a team necessarily that is, we're convinced is going to ever be a playoff team. There's still lots of questions there. So whether that's what Jim means, I don't know. But my feeling is certainly he means in the sense of, we will at least be back in sort of consideration for the playoffs, if, you know, as he loves to say, if everything goes right.
Okay, we're talking timelines, BJ, and obviously we're talking long-term timelines here, but, and I know this wasn't anything part of your interview, and I'm not
Yeah.
asking you to, well, what's your sense or anything like that. Just like, what do you think is going to be the timeline for getting rid of guys? Like Kiefer Sherwood is probably going to be done before the deadline. Do you
Yeah.
think there's going to be more than that before the deadline? Do you think they'll visit one of these kind of, I don't know if you call them core guys, but guys with term? Do you think they'll visit one of those guys before the deadline, or are they going to wait till the offseason to make bigger moves like that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I would be surprised. Like, I mean, everyone's sort of noted this. I think I'm not exactly revealing anything here. The Pedersen concept is not a rush. When I phoned up Jim, or sorry, I should say I texted him and then he phoned me. There's this Drager report, and I basically sent him the screenshot of the write up on TSN. And I said, can we talk about this? And he says as usual, I'm not talking about players, not talking about teams, but I'm talking about sort of general concepts and general principles. And so we talked about that. And yeah, I mean, I finished up by talking about the veteran defenseman, because that's the sort of, that I think when we all heard Bruce Garriock and Stu Cowan, my colleagues in back east, pointing out that Steve Stais was in Ottawa, and I talked to a couple of people, and sometimes people say, well, people need to calm down about what scouts show up at games. I'm like, I'm sorry, this is the night before a game where the Canucks are going to be in that GM's town. Like, he did not have to be there, right? Like, he could easily waited. So the fact he went to go watch meant there's something interesting. Maybe it was just in general. Maybe it's nobody in particular. But you start stringing things together, and they do need a right shot defenseman. So maybe that's Philip Hronek. I suppose maybe that's Tyler Myers. I don't imagine either of them is going to waive their trade protection or no move protection to go there. But listen, there's certain ideas here. So, it just became, that's kind of where I framed it all as well. I said, listen, like, I can't imagine a guy like Tyler Myers is someone you talk about, because we know that he's settled here. His family's settled here. He's been pretty open with, his son has some special needs, and they're quite happy here. Like, they like being here. There's a reason why he's managed to secure that contract security that he has. And I said, would you? And, Jim was not going to speak specifically, but he basically said, listen, all three of those veteran guys are important for our three young defensemen, right? Like, they're very keen on the young guys, whether that's Pedersen or Mancini that's in the lineup, but Willander and Bouillon for sure. Like, those guys matter, and they recognize having players like Myers, like Hronek, like Pedersen is important. But they also recognize that, at least, I mean, certainly Hronek, right? But you've got to think Pedersen as well, and to a degree Myers, all do have some trade value, right? There are teams that are going to be interested in probably all of them to one degree or another. And so if there is an offer involving a team that those guys would be interested in going to, they would be negligent not to think about it. And that's what he said. So, listen, how fast will things come? I mean, I think I've said this for a while. I mean, I've written for a while. Like, if you're Keith Sherwood, you're just waiting to be like, can we just hurry up and go? Like, if you're not going to keep me, can we just get me out of here? I'm tired of hearing my name out there. It's not comfortable. But as he said to a few of us, he's going to keep showing up to work, keep being professional, and he has, right? Like, there's a player that's playing well. He's been consistent. He's been consistent since he showed up here. Of course, playoff teams are going to be interested. I mean, I was very impressed by him when he was still on the Predators and the Canucks played against them. So, he's just going to be that same player. Yeah, so, like, let's get on with it. And whatever happens after that, I mean, the fact they're even talking about it tells you that they are very much of the mind that we are going to make some more moves. Now, what happens if they don't? Well, I mean, as I've, I think, again, everyone has said it's not a rebuild until you can say it, but then you got to start actually doing it. And if they don't make these things happen, then I think we can start quibbling or asking questions about, okay, what happened? You guys talked about rebuild, but you're not doing that.
PJ, where do you think Patrick Alvin's future with the organization is at? The franchise is at an interesting crossroads where Jim clearly was at the wheel for the Quinn Hughes trade, and big picture is still very much controlling these next few steps.
Right.
However, as Rutherford acknowledged in his interview with Gary Mason yesterday, beyond next season, we don't know how much longer Jim's going to be here. And certainly if it's a 2 to 3 year or even longer timeline, Jim may not be here for a really long time. So you think the organization would have to be mindful of a potential succession plan for whenever Rutherford decides that he wants to retire. And that has me thinking about Alvin. Is it just as simple as like they think Alvin is then ready for a bigger role whenever Jim wants to retire? Do you think he's on the hot seat after the season they've had? I'm just curious where he's at in all of this.
Well, I mean, certainly, as I've said before, coming into the season, lots of people, certainly observers around the league, and I wrote about it, and I think, honestly, I thought about it internally. Like, this was a huge pressure year for Alvin because at the end of the day, and as Rutherford said, he is the guy that fundamentally sits at the head of the table when it comes to making roster decisions. Now, Rutherford took the reins on the Hughes trade, which we all noted as being very interesting, right? You know, this is the hugest, most consequential move, and Dad came back. You know, and then it all left us thinking, okay, what happens here? Now, as the management situation goes, I really think that as long as Rutherford is here in charge, Alvin is going to be his GM, right? Like I have talked to enough people that think that it is a situation where it's bound at the hips, not the right term, but like Alvin is Jim's guy, right? And if it doesn't work for Alvin, then it's inherently not work for Jim, and ownership's good. But ownership clearly values right now this leadership group. I mean, I think the owner was asking around, you know, sort of his organization, how's it going? What do we need to think about? But you know, clearly has, I think, management's back. But you know, he only has their back as long as he's happy, or as long as he believes in what's going on. And for now, we have every reason to think that he does because Rutherford said so. Now, that is obviously his advantage to say so, but I don't think he's going to go speaking out of turn unless there's some crazy struggle going on. And I have no sense that that's what's going on right now. And the other thing, just sort of about Jim's future, like, yeah, like, listen, I think how else is he going to answer that? He's 77, right? Like, he's turning 78. His life is where it is, right? He knows where he's at. He knows there's not a lot of time left. That said, I do think he's a guy that, and he's always said it, he will keep working as long as sort of his family feels it's all right, and he feels all right. And my dad and him are the same age. My dad goes walking around the west side of Vancouver. He's actually gone back. He's back teaching a course a week at UBC. You know, like, he's keeping himself busy. That's how he's keeping himself busy in his later years. And this is no surprise, I think, when you're a guy like Rutherford who's felt as fortunate and has enjoyed what he's done for as long as he has. He just wants to keep doing it. That's what keeps him stimulated. That's what keeps him fresh. Yeah, he's got his dog, and if you wander around Dunbar, you might see him wandering around with his dog. But like, the reality is, Jim likes going to work. You know, Jim is watching games every night. That's his job. Jim is trying to figure out how to fix his team that blew up in their face. So I'm hesitant to put a timeline. He's putting a timeline on it because realistically, he doesn't know, right? Like, he has to say, I have to be realistic. I might have a medical condition that means I can't carry on being in charge of this team. You know, there might be something, I might become infirm. Like, he's not going to say this openly, but he is hinted towards these kinds of things. He has to be realistic. He is in his elder years. So as long as he's asked to come to work, he will keep showing up to work as long as he is able to keep going to work. And whether there's a succession plan, I think that's a great question, Harm. I don't know. I don't have any sense of that. But certainly, if one day Jim were have to walk away suddenly, we know that Alvin would be certainly in charge more than I suppose he already is. But I don't think there's a big, like, oh, Patrick, this is what's 3 years from now, Patrick Alvin will be president of the Vancouver Canucks or anything like that. I just don't think there's anything there like that right now.
PJ, thanks for doing this, my friend. We'll chat with you soon.
Always a pleasure, boys.
There he is, Patrick Johnston, regular contributor to our show, Rinkwide Vancouver, as well. All of our shows here over at the Nation Network. All right. Do you want to get to Family Feud, Harm?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Jacob, take it away.
There we go. Took a little while to get that set up, but we are ready to play Canucks Conversation Family Feud. All right. So one of my favorite parts of Feud right now is assigning a difficulty team. This has been great the last few weeks. We got the New York Rangers today because we might see an absolute bloodbath. Like, you guys put up 300 points because there's no defense being played. But also, like, they might just completely lock you down and look like a playoff team. So we'll see what happens.
Wait, are we talking Rangers with a healthy Shesterkin and Fox, or like the
Let's
Rangers
say
that played last
Rangers,
night?
Let's say Rangers with a healthy Fox and Jonathan Quick with some rest.
Okay, so we should beat them.
You should beat them, yes.
I'll mute up.
All right. Okay, Quad's going to mute up. If you're new, we play Family Feud every Thursday. Harmon's going to go first. He's going to have 25 seconds on the clock. His time will begin when I finish reading the first question. Harm, if you need if you can't think of an answer, say pass. We'll come back to it at the end if you have time. I'm going to give you just a quick note in the chat, in our private chat here, for one of the questions. Just, it's something you're going to need to know because it's a note that I gave the people who filled out the survey, and I'm not going to have time to read it. So, note for question 4. Non-playoff teams only. So there we go. It'll make sense. I put it in the chat so that you can refer to it when we get there. Anyways, are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Your time will begin when I finish reading this first question. Which Canuck player signed beyond this season with trade protection is most likely to waive their clause to accommodate a move?
DeBrusk.
Nate, how many NHL players currently on Olympic rosters won't actually go to the Olympics?
4.
Who will lead the Canucks in goals next season?
Elias Pettersson.
If the Canucks pick second overall, which team picking first would anger you the most?
Chicago.
Name a Swedish goalie who played for the Canucks.
Markstrom.
There you go. Made it just ahead of the buzzer. All right. You can flag Quads down. I'll tally up your score.
How'd it go?
Solid. I think we did all right.
T. Rogers in the chat said, and Jacob will like this, every team is Colorado for Quads.
You know what, though? I'll give you credit. Going second is hard.
It is. It was really hard last.
And I was surprised
really
that
hard
your
last
answers
week.
didn't get you more points.
I agree. Although I did sell last week on not getting Schaefer. Not getting Schaefer was unacceptable.
Yeah.
I said Scheifele instead of Schaefer. That, like, I
was a
actually had
miss.
3 nightmares about that in the past few days.
Would Schaefer alone have gotten us the win?
Yes.
Yes, it would.
Would have.
I remember
That's tough.
we put that in afterwards to test. All right, Harm, you did well. In fact, you did well enough to get 146 points.
Oh no! Didn't he get exactly that last week? Anyway,
I think so. It was pretty close.
Let's go.
All right, so Quads, you're gonna have 30 seconds on the clock. Your time will
Yeah,
begin
I know.
when
I know
finish
about
reading
the
first
buzzer.
question.
Let's go. Let's
Yeah,
go.
if you give one of Harmon's answers, which you will do at least 4 times, if I'm guessing, you will hear the buzzer. And I will ask you to try again. If you can't think of an answer, say pass. We'll come back to it at the end. Ready to go, Quads? You only need 54 points.
I'm saying this before. I'm putting you on waivers, and we're calling Jacob up to play if you fumble this one.
I agree. I need a break.
You can call in.
If I get it wrong.
Call in JPad as well. You can join.
Dude, why are we talking about this? Let's go. Why are we talking about this right before I go? Let's go.
All right, Quads. And again, I put in the chat just a note for question 4 that I gave to all the people asking the question. I wouldn't have time to read it. It would make it too long.
Okay.
Which Canuck player signed beyond this season is with trade protection is most likely to waive their clause to accommodate a move?
Demko.
How many NHL players currently on Olympic rosters won't actually go?
Say it again. Sorry.
Okay, I'll pause. I'll pause here. Quads, don't worry. I fucked up the
Shut up, Harm.
Sorry, pardon my French. How many NHL players currently on Olympic rosters won't actually go to the Olympics?
3.
Who will lead the Canucks in goals next season?
Stenberg.
If the Canucks pick second overall, which team picking first would anger you the most?
Edmonton.
Name a Swedish goalie who played for the Canucks.
Markstrom.
Try again.
I don't freaking know. Oh, Nilsson. Give me Anders Nilsson. Put me down for Anders
Fine,
Nilsson.
I'll give you Anders Nilsson.
Could you even say Edmonton? Isn't Edmonton in a playoff spot?
No,
right now?
Edmonton isn't a playoff spot, Quads. I gave
Oh,
you the
that was a
note.
whole no.
Oh, no. Shit. All right.
This is gonna be a
Tally it up,
disaster.
Jake.
No way.
This is gonna be
No
a
way I
disaster.
just witnessed that.
6
No
points.
way I just witnessed that.
All right.
points.
What a disaster.
Which player beyond this season is most likely to waive? This was honestly like we had to pause. I had to re-ask a question. Quads and I both swore because we're just absolutely flabbergasted right now. Which Canuck player signed beyond this season with trade protection is most likely to waive? Harmon, you got the number one answer with Jake DeBrusk. Quads, you said Thatcher Demko, who I have to look up.
Ah.
Why would you pick the guy that said I want to be here?
I don't know.
I don't even know if Demko. I don't even think there's no points for Demko.
No points.
Oh, man.
0?
So what was number 2?
The number 2 answer was Connor Garland.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The number 3 answer was Drew O'Connor. The number 4 answer was Marcus Pedersen. All better options than Thatcher Demko.
I forgot that those bums, those guys have no trade protection. I forgot
All right,
that.
still
All
need
right.
54. How many NHL players currently on Olympic rosters won't go to the Olympics? I don't even know what you said. Did you say 3?
He said
3.
Good. You got 18
That should be
points there.
close.
All right, here we go.
Four,
Buckle up.
Harmon said 4. That was number 3 answer. This one was like 3 was the number 1 answer, Quaz, but it was only 18 points. It was a wide spread. It was the least important number 1 answer to hit. Good news for you guys is Harmon got 3 of the other number 1 answers, but we'll see what happens here. Actually, no, you got all of the other number 1 answers because,
It's hard to go second.
sure it is. Unless you get the number 2s, in which case, you're fine. Who will lead the Canucks in goals next season? Harmon said Elias Pettersson. That was the number 1 answer. Quads, number 5, worth 7 points, was Ivar Stenberg. You've picked up on the anything with the Canucks next year. Probably safe to say McKenna or Stenberg.
Was McKenna worth more?
No, McKenna was worth less. You got
Nice.
Stenberg.
Okay,
That was the
so
right one.
what's number 2?
Number 2 answer was Besser, which we'll see.
Probably.
Number 3 answer was Lekrumaki. Number 4 answer was DeBrusk. Number 5 answer was Stenberg. So
Besser was the first name that came to mind, but I pivoted Stenberg. How many points would we have gotten had I said Besser?
you'd got an extra 8 points. Number
Okay,
1,
not
like
even bad.
Pettersson was worth 33. That was the big one.
I don't know if we're winning this week, Harm.
You guys only need 29 points on the last 2.
You think?
I said Anders Nilsson, and then didn't I say Edmonton? Edmonton
Okay.
doesn't even have their first. They don't even have
Yes,
their first round
so-
pick.
So the Edmonton Oilers are completely ineligible. A, they don't
All right.
have their first round pick. B, I said teams that aren't like you can't pick teams that are in the playoffs. Obviously, no one
I
wants
forgot that. It's
Edmonton
happening
to-
in the moment. I forgot that.
Obviously, no one wants Edmonton to pick first overall, but they're not. They cannot possibly pick first overall.
Maybe they trade for it. I don't
Harm
know.
said Chicago. That was the number 1 answer, worth 26
Nice.
points. Number 2 was Calgary.
Mm,
Canucks rival, obviously. You don't want to see McKenna go there.
yeah.
Or Stenberg go there. Probably be McKenna, I think, if it was Calgary picking. Number 3 answer was the New York Rangers. Number 4 answer was the Winnipeg Jets. Number 5 was Toronto. Interesting. Number 6 being Florida. Yeah, if Florida ended up picking first overall, I think people would be furious. Great work by everyone who filled out the survey. I think that's a great set of data. And Quads gets no points for saying Edmonton.
How about Nilsson?
So I'm going to tell
29
you
points.
right now, Quads.
29 points.
So Markstrom was the number 1 answer, worth 40. The number 2 answer is worth 29 points.
but it's Eddie
The
Lack.
number 2 answer would have
Eddie
gotten
Lack.
you 200 on the dot. The number 2 answer was Eddie Lack. You guys
Oh!
lose.
Tough to say whose fault this was.
Oh yeah, so tough.
I'm too mad to even.
Anders
Like,
Nilsson, number
truly
4
crash
answer,
out.
by the way. 11 points. Did you know there's only been 5 Swedish goalies to ever play for the Canucks? And one of them only played a single game, and whoever filled out the survey and put Joakim Eriksson in as their pick, that was fantastic. He played 1 game for the Vancouver Canucks. The other 4 being Markstrom, Lack, Nilsson, and Johan Hedberg. So
this is worrying. We're 9-7 now. We were off to a blazing hot start to begin the season. We fumbled 2 in a row. Yeah, you're getting the DeBrusque healthy scratch. And if Jacob,
I think
you're gonna get back into the lineup.
I think I should go first.
No,
I think that's the switch.
No. We can do that after. I think we gotta we
Take
gotta
a week.
Jacob up.
How about Jacob? Can we let Harmon just go by himself, and he just needs to get 100 points?
What? No. We need
Harmon
2
gets 100
participants.
points every week. Quads. He's been below 100 like once this entire season.
Yeah. Tough one.
I will say going second is harder, but even with that, it's
not
way
that
harder.
hard. Not that hard.
Even with that context in mind, I think we got to call Jacob up.
Sapphire in the chat said Quads is the Stu Skinner to Harm's McDavid. T in the chat said Harm is rethinking his entire life. A lot of comments right now. Someone says Quads is selling for content, and Conversation,
no,
regular
he's
listener to the
not.
show,
He's not.
very correctly pointed out Quads is not selling for content. He is the content.
Yeah,
I'm trying my best out here.
So
But it's
yeah,
tough. Family Feud's a bad idea. I don't think we should play anymore. I think it's a bad segment. I don't know.
no,
You can't say that because you were also the one that came up with the idea.
it was your idea, and
It's a bad idea, though.
we'll figure it out. I don't know. Maybe Quads goes first. Maybe we call up J-Pat next week. We got Jeff and Harm go.
Jeff watches some of the shows. If Jeff's watching right now, he'll text me.
Yeah.
You
I
need
think
a
we should
one. You
just
need a
bring
1
Jeff
game
on.
reset. 1 game reset.
Yeah,
I think.
we'll bring
healthy
Jeff
scratch.
on for this.
We got a healthy scratch. Quads. He's got to watch from the press box. He's got to watch how Jeff handles the pressure of going second and manages to get more than one number 2 answer and win the game. I think that's the plan.
Tough one.
All right.
Tough one this week. All right. People enjoyed it. Yeah. Saltaire Bruce said the idea of getting rid of Feud is my worst take. This was peak. Yeah, I don't like this. I'm starting to struggle a little bit out there. You know what? Now I get it. When like JC Miller was at his absolute worst, I want out. I might go over to Oilers Nation. All right. Let's get to anyone else. Anyone else's presentation. Actually, Harm, can you do the ad read?
If you had given me the script, maybe.
Anyone else is presented by Pacific Toyota dealers in the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offers the best of both worlds. Drive up 72 kilometers on battery alone, enough to get you from downtown to the rink, the grocery store, and home to recharge. Seamlessly transition from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. There's no sacrifices when it comes to horsepower style with its sleek, low and wide exterior and sophisticated interior. It's loaded with tech that's actually easy to use. Plug in to recharge at home or at one of the over 2,000 public charge stations in BC alone. And now you can lease a 2026 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $109 weekly at 3.99% APR for 64 months with $3,300 down. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Okay, we got a super chat. Condones, $5 super chat. We appreciate the donation to the BC Mental Health Foundation. He said, General Manager Patrick Alvin would like to announce a trade. David Quadrelli to Toronto Nation for another David Penyota 1-for-1 trade. Unbelievable. Thank you for the super chat. Man, the comments. This is really funny. Ed said Quad says the yips. T said Quad stick slam is warranted. T Rogers said, so Quad's got like 25 points and thinks that's because he went second. All right. DM in the chat, DM paid said Quads needs to reprogram his game. And Grim Studio said Quads is tanking for McKenna. Jacob, book Gavin McKenna. He's the Family Feud fill-in. Gavin McKenna. There you go.
I don't think I can get Gavin McKenna to play Family Feud with you guys. I'm sorry. Just being honest there.
Why not? What's the Penn State PR department? They must have one, right?
I'm sure.
They do.
So like I could ask to get Gavin McKenna on the show. I would say it's unlikely he comes on the show, but there's no chance they're going to let him come on and play Family Feud with us. Like,
don't tell them what it's for. Just say, hey,
get him on the show. You guys can interview him. Then all of a sudden the Family Feud music just starts.
No interview. Just like introduction.
Sneak
I
attack.
get taken off stage. You put him on the main box for me, and then you start just talking about Family Feud. What's he gonna do? Leave? He's not a quitter. Can't have that, that reputation in his draft year. Anyways, I honestly, I'm so rattled. I don't even know what I wanted to talk about today. The Rangers suck. I had that in my notes. I texted you that as well. Literally that word for word, just the Rangers really suck. Really, really tough to watch right now. I mean, I don't know. Tough to watch for who? I guess Rangers fans. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just really rattled. Jonathan Quick's washed. The Rangers aren't very good.
Yeah, it looks like you modeled your Family Feud performance after watching the Rangers last night.
RE45 said Leangelo Quadrelli.
Oh, that's one of the best comments we've had in a long time. That's so good.
Oh man, that's funny. That's funny. All right. Yeah, I got nothing. Harm. Anyone else?
I got something.
Good. Thank God.
This was 2 or 3 days ago, but we didn't talk about it. The Braden Point injury. Did you see that? I think it was Cam York who fell on his leg. It twisted in an awkward spot. He immediately yelping for pain, grabbing his knee, not really putting much weight on it as he went off the ice. Now, John Cooper said the next day that Point avoided the worst case scenario, which was a season-ending injury, but that it's a week-to-week injury, which means that they're going to have to play by the year when it comes to whether he's going to be available for the Olympics or not. It's a massive blow because Point started really slow. Then I think there was a brief stretch where he was out, came back from the injury, and then he was firing on all cylinders. He was scoring at will, and you thought, okay, this is the Braden Point that you want at the Olympics, especially because think back to the Four Nations, he got a look with McDavid towards the end of that tournament and was, I think, the most effective winger McDavid had in terms of the chemistry. And Chris Johnston and Pierre LeBrun wrote a piece at The Athletic where they were reacting to some of the fallout from the Point injury and said that the plan was for Point to get the first look with McDavid again. So now you've got a potential hole on that top line. If Point isn't able to recover in time, or even if he is able to recover in time, it just takes away the momentum he'd been building from this hot streak. And now, at least in terms of injury replacements, to me, the very clear answer should be Connor Bedard, because
Yes.
Doug Armstrong said, depending on who the stylistic fit of the player that we're potentially missing, we want somebody that can match that skill set closer, right? So if it was,
they've
Tom
got
Wilson,
understudies. They don't have like a list of replacements that they're going to go down. They have understudies for each guy, basically.
Yeah, and so if it was like a Tom Wilson or a Bo Horvat gets injured, of course you're going to have Sam Bennett in because you want more of that like bottom six kind of fit for your team. But I look at Point, right shot, speedy guy that can play the wing with elite level talent. To me, that's Connor Bedard. The only question I have is, would Team Canada go from Connor Bedard's not even on our original roster to now Bedard's going to get the first look with McDavid? I think that poses an interesting question. If not Bedard, I mean, sure, you could also look at Scheifele, you could also look at Wyatt Johnston, who are also right shot offensive guys. But to me, I wanted to see Bedard there as a top six injury insurance option anyway. And now that you're missing a potential top six guy and Point, I want to see Bedard get that opportunity to go.
I'm 100% with you. Yeah, that's the clear pick. But if you're asking me on Family Feud, I probably would spit out Mark Scheifele or something like that. Kirill Kudryavtsev, I had this as well. He's named an AHL All-Star. Good for him.
Yeah, do they have to name one from every team?
Believe so, yeah.
Right. I was going to say, we had this conversation.
Ben Berard was robbed.
Well, now Nils Aman is leading Abbotsford in scoring 21 points in 28 games. The point I was going to make is Abbotsford doesn't have many great all-star options. And so good for Kudryavtsev, but also that also speaks to, I mean, because of injuries as well. I bet you if Lecker-Mackey had spent the entire year in Abbotsford, there's a guy with 7 goals in 10 games. If he hadn't been dealing with injuries and also spent some time in the NHL at the start of the season, he probably would have put up the kind of numbers that would have him going to the All-Star game. But in the absence of Lekermacki and some of these other guys that have been shuttled up and down because of the injuries that Vancouver suffered really early in the season, it's been tough to have true difference makers. Good for Kudryavtsev, but also just a tough year for Abbotsford in general.
Man, I'm just looking at their roster and what guys have done this year, and it is pretty bleak. It's pretty bleak.
Well, Ty Mueller is fourth in scoring with 13 points in 31 games. Like, yikes.
Do you think there's anyone still out there being like, I wonder what's going to happen with Danil Klimovich? Like,
No.
for years, we had those people in the chat of just like, don't sleep on Danilo Klimovich. And we're like, okay, all right. People used to get mad at Steven all the time for coming on because, like, the minute Klimovich was drafted, Steven was like, this is a huge mistake. And everyone's like, no, it's not. Actually, I always like this one because I had people like this when it came to the Quinn Hughes trade, and I also had people like this when it came to the Klimovich trade. The idea that because this has never happened before, that obviously it's going to translate to the outcome that you want. And what I mean by that is I had one guy, no naming names with either situation, but I had one guy when Faber and I were originally kind of lowish on Klimovich. He was like, are you guys dumb? Like, there's never been a guy in the tier 2 Belarusian league to put up the kind of points that he did. It's like, okay, the best players, the best NHL players aren't playing in that league. So what are you trying to... Anyways. And then with the Hughes trade, I'm not naming names, although I really want to. There was one guy who was constantly just like, name a Canadian captain who... or captain of a Canadian team that left his team, blah, 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 and like, all these specific parameters, and it's like, and was also born after 1990. It's like, what are you talking about? And anyways, I just wanted to bring that up because I'm always reminded of that during the Klimovich stuff because there were some real Klimovich truthers out there. I don't think there's any more of them at this point.
Yeah, I remember his very first training camp. He impressed actually because the physical tools, the athletic gifts were so apparent, right? The shot. His release is violent in terms of the velocity. The puck skills were shining. And you thought, okay, if this is his first NHL training camp, like maybe he could turn into something. But then the issue is he's great he's just a shinny type of player where he's got all the individual tools, but doesn't understand how to work within the parameters of a team. And like the hockey IQ isn't there. He just drives coaches nuts with how inconsistent his play away from the puck is. He has a temper that he sometimes can't control well, which leads to undisciplined penalties. He gets easily frustrated on the ice. He makes poor, risky decisions with the puck, and that's the issue, right? Is he was physically developed and gifted, but the other parts of his game that needed to develop, the understanding how to play at a high North American level, how to be a team player, board work, all these other details, he just was never able to make any progress in that area. And that's another case of you shouldn't overvalue what happens at a single international tournament for a prospect. You have to look at the whole body of work because it was the U18s, I want to say, where he just lit it up. All those goals were on the power play, or most of them anyway, which should have been a red flag anyway. But you can imagine Canucks scout goes there, and that's a high-profile tournament. He's putting up a bunch of goals and points.
Sorry, what do you mean scout? Wasn't it Benning himself? Wasn't he the one?
Yeah,
like, I watched
your staff. I can't even remember now. But the point being, the organization takes one look at him, probably sees that he's not ranked very high, but oh, look, we saw him in person and we think he's a dude, not realizing that isn't it a red flag that he's playing in like a second tier Belarusian league, and then just made that take to rank him and draft him that high based on one tournament.
Ended up talking about Klimovich on today's show. Did we expect that today? No, we did not. I just had a quick thing. I'm just gonna check. Okay, never mind. Nope, not gonna talk about it. I just had to check something. All right. Do you have anything else that you want to get to?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. People want to know where Kyle Tucker's going. Obviously the Jays. He's going to the Jays. If he goes to the Mets or Dodgers, that's a mistake. He's going to be a great fit for the Jays. I hope the Jays get him. Harm, your thoughts, Kyle Tucker?
How good is he? I know he's one of the
Really
top
good. Really
free
good.
agents, but
he's
are we
like a
talking
top
all-star caliber?
top.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
he's like a top 15 player in the sport.
And
Damn,
he's just
okay.
like a well-rounded, like he's good defensively. He can hit for decent average. He can hit for
Yeah.
decent power. He walks a lot. He doesn't like he's
He's a big reason why I beat Jacob so badly in fantasy baseball last year, actually.
yes, one of the many reasons, but yes. Kyle Tucker, like he's legit. Like he's been an all-star 4 years in a row, so, 2-time Silver Slugger. He's won a Gold Glove, like top 5 in MVP voting. He's a dude.
Yeah,
And then would the idea be there that you sign Tucker and then let Bo leave?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not signing Bichette.
I think
they've got a
Bichette's-
fine middle infield.
Yeah, Bichette, I think, is already out of the question for the Blue Jays now. And he was, as soon as they signed Okamoto out of Japan, I think that was.
Oh, how
that
good
was-
is he?
Good. Yeah, he's good. The Japanese players, it's always tough. Like some of them, more so the pitchers take a little bit of time to adjust to North America. It's kind of like when you bring Russian hockey players over, right? Like the KHL is very clearly the second best league in the world, but sometimes players come over and it takes them a little while. Sometimes they are great right away, right? Like in the case of Kaprizov, when he came over, he was great right away, but others take a little longer. So he'll be, again, like he's not going to be a superstar for this Jays team, but he'll be a really good contributor, I think, for them. So exciting times.
Right, folks. Baseball talk is starting. The sun is shining today. It's supposed to be sunny this weekend. And are we sharing? Are you guys ready to announce your commitment?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Do the honors. Go ahead, Harm.
What exactly are we announcing?
That you're committing to the league.
Okay, great. I had to clarify whether we're like officially on the team or what the situation is. Yeah, but Jacob and I are joining Quads Baseball League for the spring, and we're jacked up for it.
It's gonna be great content. And the beauty of it is games start in mid-April. Usually get to worry about playoffs. Not this year. Not this year. You can commit. You're ready to go. And we're going to play this Saturday. Just the three of us, couple other buddies coming out. We're going to go throw the ball around and yeah, going to be good. Get you guys ready. Get you guys ready for game shape. It's going to be good. Really good time. That's good content too. Jacob, we could turn that into content. I know we can. We'll do it. Not this weekend, but we'll do it at some point. All right. Let's go to our Bet365 bet of the day. Jacob, what did I take yesterday?
Yesterday, was it Wild Money Line? That's what I have written down.
Oh, I don't think so.
That doesn't.
Well, they
sound
won,
right.
so maybe. Didn't they? Hold on. They didn't play yesterday.
Okay,
That
then
was
I don't know what
the
you took yesterday.
bet before that.
I
There
don't
were
know
only
what I
4
took.
games. Did you bet on the Kings Knights game? Or
That
was it the
doesn't sound
Devil
right either.
Kraken? I don't know.
Was
Oh,
it
maybe
a-
I took Kraken. Did I take Kraken?
I don't know. Chat might have to help us out. Also, someone in the chat saying Sam Darnold is injured. He's like questionable. He listed as questionable, but he's going to play. He came out today and said, "Yeah, I'm going to play." He got like a nick in practice, so they had to put him on the injury report, but he's going to play.
All right. Tonight, I like this. Tonight, the Toronto Maple Leafs take on.
Oh,
Mitch
hold
Marner.
on. Raj Kraft said, didn't he take the Rangers? You definitely bet on that Rangers game.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. They
Yeah.
really. That's why the Rangers were on the brain. They really disappointed last night.
Yeah, because they were down 6-0 at one point.
Yeah, it was bad. It was a bloodbath.
Who did you bet on?
Tonight,
The Rangers or the Sens?
Rangers. I took Rangers.
Why are you betting on these horrible teams? Like you bet on who was it the other
Hey.
night that you bet on?
I got a good one today.
Or I don't know.
I got a good one today. Okay. Tonight, we're going to the hardwood. All right. The Miami Heat are home underdogs. I like an underdog. All right. Home underdogs to the Boston Celtics. Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler, plus 120 odds.
Used to
get,
be.
Heat money line. I saw this. Oh, I forgot his name. Oh yeah, the guy Trey something, Atlanta.
Trae Young.
Yeah, he got traded. Did you see?
Yeah,
He's
to Washington.
teaming up with Jay Wall and Bradley Beal. Miami Heat plus 120 money line. You can get that. You can get that over at Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, folks.
You mentioned Trae Young. I'm gonna blow your mind in case you didn't already know. Do you know the story behind what happened with Trae Young at the draft and the draft pick swap?
No.
So I don't know the specifics in terms of like where the exact picks were. I think one of them was maybe 3rd overall, one of them was 5th overall. But the point being, the Hawks and the Mavs were both picking really high in that year's draft. And essentially the end result ended up being that the Hawks could have had Luka Doncic, but ended up having Trae Young instead. And then that gifted the Mavs Luka instead of Trae Young, which is funny because, I mean, first of all, Young for a while was actually a really good player. Now he's pretty washed, and that's why he was dealt for so little. He's on a bad contract now too. And so you, of course, you think, well, the Mavs ran away with that swap, and then of course they made one of the dumbest trades I've seen in any of the major 4 sports. Trading him to the Lakers, where now Anthony Davis is out for the remainder of the season too. And they're apparently looking to trade Anthony Davis. But anyway, that's a sidebar. I'm just imagining the NHL where, like, imagine 2 top 5, 2 top 6 picks where like the teams are just willing to trade them straight 1 for 1 essentially. You would never see that in the NHL.
Did they not get anything else? In like the team that traded down, did they not get anything else? Like what else did they get?
I've got it here. So funny enough, there was actually 3 future stars that were traded on draft day after getting picked, because SGA was drafted by Charlotte and then traded to the Clippers right after he was picked. So the Hawks took it was the Hawks that had the 3rd pick. They took Doncic. They traded him to Dallas for Trae Young, who was pick number 5, and they got a future 1st round pick in return as well. So they traded down, instead of trading down 2 spots, they drafted the players and then traded the players and then got a future pick out of it. And then Charlotte took Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and then traded him for the 12th overall pick, who was Miles Bridges, and got 2 future 2nd round picks. The NBA is so weird with that, where like in the NFL, you usually see teams just trade down and then the new team gets the pick and goes and selects the player. But in the NBA, you often see teams select the player and then trade the player on the draft floor. Same thing happened with Kobe Bryant. He was drafted by the Charlotte Hornets. And so his draft photo is him with a Charlotte Hornets hat, and then he was traded to the Lakers right after. And then same thing with Luka Doncic. He was photographed on the draft stage with his Atlanta Hawks gear and never obviously did anything with the Hawks because he was traded like literally minutes later.
Interesting. All right. T. Rogers said the bet today is quads coming in clutch on Family Feud at plus 100,000 odds. We'll close it out there. Good show today, boys, for you guys. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Bazar, my name is Dave Wujelli. Thanks so much for this episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.